Okay, hi, and welcome. Um, so, just to give us context as to where today falls in the grand scheme of things, a week from today, we're going to do the first of two presentations on the design document milestone for this project. The design document, Bryn can verify, is usually considered to be probably the most significant piece of documentation you'll ever produce when it comes to delivering on any kind of game design project. Typically, especially when you've got a client and you need to show them that you've got some idea of what they want, and the design document is supposed to help put into all like gruesome detail everything about your game, short of actually making the code. And so what you need to do next week is you need to be able to stipulate not only kind of what your game is about now and kind of how it extends in terms of, the general feeling you want to create, but also things like, your character designs, what are the characters going to be in this and why are they going to be this way? And then things like your level designs. Your level designs were particularly crucial here because we really need you to articulate what your game is going to look like and what kind of things your player is going to have to do in order to overcome the obstacles of your game. So the problem that we get is that people tend to do this in a very casual ad hoc sort of way instead of doing it in a way that is both informed and purposeful. So that brings us to our guest speaker today. Bryn has been giving an introduction to level design for the past few years now. And this year is actually much more integrated into the course in general, and we'll be there at the presentations next week to see whether you've actually, taken on some of the lessons that he's trying to impart today. But the main idea behind today is just to help make you more aware of level design from somebody who kind of does this for a living. And with that, I'm going to hand things over to Bryn and get you to, I guess, you can share your presentation and tell us a little bit about yourself.
That's good, yeah.
So, thank you, Bryn. Thank you very much, Bryn, for coming and joining us.
Click, share screen, share that screen. Is this working?
Yep.
Beautiful. Lovely. All right. Stick that in there. And cool. Thanks for having me, Steve. And hey everyone, my name's Bryn Davies, Technical Director of Level Design at Ubisoft Toronto. And you've probably heard me in other lectures or sort of seen me lurking around on the Discord. I've got a quick summary of things that we'll be talking about today. But first, a little about myself. So I used to work at Lionhead Studios back in the UK, where I spent 7 years on a lot of games with Fable in the name. Fable Legends, rest in peace. And then 8 years ago, I moved to Canada to work at Ubisoft Toronto, shipping Watch Dogs 2, Starlink Battle for Atlas, and Watch Dogs Legion. So first off, what exactly is a level? Groan. It sounds like a really annoyingly obvious question, but it bears thinking about because levels are often so different from each other. Some levels are crafted to tell a specific story. It's really sort of heavily scripted and narrative driven. Others have no narrative beyond that which the players themselves create through gameplay. Maybe it's a multiplayer map or something like that. One level might be different every time that you play through it. Other levels might be exactly the same, within reason. Sayonara Wild Hearts on the right, which is awesome. Levels can be environments, but often it can also be more sort of esoteric structures, missions, stories, challenges, sequences, everything from a quick time event to a specific mission or a puzzle or a dance or rhythm game, all that sort of stuff. Those things can still encompass levels. So then really a level is the structure through which the player interacts with the game's content. It's the glue it's the wrapper that binds all of the mechanics that we use in the game and the elements that we can actually interact with into a cohesive whole. It's also intentional, right? It's specifically designed to communicate a given idea to the player, which is to say, in the most traditional sense of the word, that if I take on mechanics, the tools through which the player can interact, and things that they might interact with, and then arrange them in such a way as to convey our specific design intent, then we'd get a level. Hopefully not lovely vector art in PowerPoint though. So level design and its counterpart level art are the two disciplines most closely tied to creating levels in games. Obviously, audio and effects and lots of other sort of people do it as well, but as a sort of the end creators of a specific level, usually level art and level design are the sort of closest tied to it. Level design will predominantly focus on the functional aspects of how the level is going to play. So like what the player can do, what are you trying to communicate to them as a designer? Level art then aims to ensure that the space is fully realized through asset production, lighting, particles, all that kind of stuff. In reality, though, both the level art and level design overlap in their concerns. And depending on the size of the studio, the responsibilities of both spheres might be covered by one person or by multiple people in each role. And yeah, some examples in the background actually from Watch Dogs Legion. You had a super early level design block out of Piccadilly Circus on the right, and the sort of final level art version in the back. So let's take a look through the typical level design process. Right? How do we go about building a level? Well, where do we even start? So if we come back to the previous statement of like what a level is, it seems that there's three things that we need to know before we can actually build a level, right? Like what is the player? Not the person who's playing, obviously, but their particular agency inside our game. Are they a character? Are they just a camera? You know, what is it about them? How do they move in the space, if there is a space, or any of that kind of stuff? How do they interact with the game? So what are our mechanics? And then what do I interact with? Like what is the game content made up of? What goes into the level? Now, three of these things hopefully would be answered in part by your creative briefs, right? You'll have thought through what these aspects are. So to help me talk about what you might be able to do from a creative briefs point of view, I've made up one myself, although mine's really bad, so don't worry. So, Steel of Honor, which is an entirely unoriginal, obviously, derivative third-person action RPG coming to a console near you, 2022. Yeah, I'll just bash this out in 6 months by myself. This is a pretty poor idea, but I'll be using this as a wrapper that we can all understand easily to demonstrate how we might approach a level design within this context. So this is going to sound like 101 other games, but it's a third-person action RPG. I've got melee and range combat systems, NPC interactions, player choice. Obviously, lots of different abilities in an RPG system, lots of loot. People love loot, different supported play styles and more. Importantly, for the way I'm going to talk about the level design, we're looking at separated levels that might get revisited, or maybe they're just bespoke for a particular mission, as opposed to a big open world that the player freely traverses. that's because the process to design an open world is a bit different to this process. And I don't think anyone's making an open world game. If you suggested that you were, you'd be insane, because it's too much work right now. So yeah, let's step through this then. So to start with, and to keep things simple, I'm going to focus on what's usually referred to in AAA development as our 3 Cs: character, camera, and controller. These 3 elements together are how the player feels the experience of piloting their avatar in the game, usually in this case in a first or third person perspective. I'm building my my example project in Unreal. I know everyone's, for the most part, is building in Unity. This is just because, well, I've been using Unreal a bit more recently than I've been using Unity. Next time I'll do Unity, I promise. But I'm using I've grabbed the UE4 sort of default mannequin. I've retargeted some animations onto him, so I've got some nice kind of demonstrable animation sets for my dude. And I grabbed a sword from one of the free content packs, and I modeled a rubbish looking shield, so he's ready to go. I'm just going to be able to walk and run for the moment because we keep it simple. And yeah, like string and cage camera, as it used to be known, people traditionally think of it as third person camera. That's what I'm running with, right? The camera's going to track behind me. I've got free rotation of the camera on the right stick, and I move about on the left stick. And I do most, because most of my work is for console. I'm actually using a DualShock 2 PS4 controller, just because like I got it to hand and I like the feel of it. So whilst I have a rough idea of the direction I want to go in, I don't actually have enough information to start making an actual level for my game. The reason being, the specifics of my 3 Cs, like how big is my character, how fast or slow are they, how's my camera, going to move, and where is it going to sit in relation to the character? These are all foundational parts of my game that many other systems, features, and content will rely on. The sort of diagram here isn't exhaustive, and actually it's kind of misleading because you have more of a web of dependencies as opposed to this sort of linear hierarchy. But it's to illustrate that things like 3 Cs are like low enough level to be critical components, and changing them fundamentally impacts a lot of things, especially our level design. I sort of track here where, if it can be anything from changing my speed or changing my size can drastically affect how, say, AI systems might work, and therefore the balance of my game, because now it's suddenly very easy to kill AI. There's no value to any of my skill unlocks, all that kind of stuff. So looking at 3 Cs, so I've got my little, actually this is a gym, which we'll be looking at in more detail in a moment. But if you see, like, the environment in our level is designed for my character to move in. Don't know how this is a really important point, really needs to sort of soak in there, right? It's literally the only purpose for my level to exist is the player character needs to move around in it. Obviously, there might be other agents that also need to be able to operate in there. That's an aside, but we're just looking at the player for now. And so my character scale is paramount to the environment's layout, its navigation, and the relative scale to it. And it impacts lots of other aspects of our game's design, like, not just pathing, can I go that way? Can I, what things can I do there? But like, well, what is content? What can is that just background dressing, or can I go and interact with that? Physics, audio, all of these things can be sort of coming back and impacted by this decision. Player movement speed is another critical component that underpins our environment design, right? Exactly the same space and different speeds, and it can feel very different to each other. See it get through the space a lot faster, but then the distance between things is a lot shorter in terms of my reaction time and such like that. It's suddenly I get stuck with the idea of, is my level too small or is it too big? And I shouldn't be tuning the speed of my character to match the level, because the level's one point of existing is to be a space that's designed for my character. So my character needs to know how fast they're going to be moving. If you think of any game that has vehicles or mounts or horses or anything else like that, right? Like basically a modal change of 3Cs where suddenly you can move a lot faster. They're almost certainly the levels in that game were designed knowing that this thing would be in there. You'd have vehicles, you'd have mounts. You don't shoehorn such a big design change in after your levels are already built, because that leads to either having to rework the level or your game sucks because the 3Cs feel bad, right? Oh no, I can't move around the space. It feels too clunky. Everything's too close together. The camera also, like its position, you know, relative to the player, but also its features like field of view, you know, is it fixed rotation, top down, isometric, can I tilt it? All of these are going to greatly affect how you design your levels and the content that goes into them. Different camera implementations and features each come with their own set of issues that you'll need to design around too. In an isometric camera, especially a fixed camera, you got to worry about being hidden behind tall geometry, and not just the player, right? You could have, okay, well, if the player is going to get occluded by geometry, then I will hide that, you know, fade the geometry out. Okay, now AI is being occluded by it, and the player doesn't see that an AI is, say, shooting them or something like that. That's not very fair. So that's another issue. And then you can always, you know, you can always then design around that, say, blocking the player from an AI from being able to occlude themselves, by that space where it's occluded isn't playable. Or you can design your levels to never have that issue, right? I'll never have geo that's in front of the camera that way. There's no right answer to that. These are all just design decisions that are taken to best fit, you know, that sort of that paradigm into your game. And different games take different approaches, and it's got to work on what's best for your game. Now, these sorts of fundamental design choices and data are what we call metrics, at least as far as I've come across it in AAA. They are rules by which we can begin to build other systems on top of. They can and will change. That's the nature of iterative design, right? It's just that the greater the change and the more dependent the game's mechanics are on those metrics, the more knock-ons you have to deal with. The example that I give here in this GIF is a sort of an example of like human house metrics, right? If I had like a component system for building houses or different buildings as such, what is my doorway width like? What is the minimum width of my staircases? Things like that. On games I've worked on, we have an absolute ton of these. And everything is made to fit within these constraints, even though obviously this is a house. And if you look at real world metrics, such as how wide actual doorways are, these are gigantic. These are a stupid size. That's too big. You know, it doesn't make sense, but they make sense from the scale of the character. So it's always, you know, making sure that the world fits the character first, not real life or whatever else your influence is there. Now, as we've sort of seen, tuning and iterating on mechanics is best done in a space where you can focus on that feature exclusively, and where the environment is built to test the extents of what you can do. So we call these gyms. Usually, maybe places have different names to them, but essentially you might have a gym that is for all of your movement mechanics. Maybe it's also being used by the animators or such to tune how the animation is going to flow, going up and down stairs, okay, all that kind of stuff. You might have others for combat tuning and AI, conversation system, whatever different features that you want there. I just want to point out, because I'm getting stressed whenever I watch this GIF. It's just like the second jump is so infuriating. It just looks like it should work, but it's not. I'm so angry. I can't look at it anymore. See, designers and artists might also build gyms, right? If you want to test out and iterate on a small idea, right? Like you might have an idea for a boss battle, or you've got a cool idea for an environment or a puzzle, or something that is sort of an element, an atomic element of gameplay. And so you can just prove that out in isolation without having to think about the larger picture. And you can tune that as a small sort of item that then, hey, when it feels good, when people, you can sell the idea to people, that can then go in and could be used later on as part of a larger level. My sort of takeaways of this, it's important to get your 3Cs metrics 80% of the way, because you know that any big changes later on are going to have knock-on. So you don't want to start designing, actual level design content unless you've got that stuff worked out. And you can work it out in a gym. Perfect use of it, so you can get the feel of how things are. You then can use your metrics to inform other design choices. Actually, yeah, I'm going to flick back to this one, right? This jump height one, infuriating as it is. Let's say I went, okay, I'm that jump height that I've got now, I can cleanly jump 1 meter. Okay, that's going to be my jump height for the game. Well, I can also say, I'm not going to have platforms that are like 1.5 meters tall, because as you can see, like I can't tell that I can't jump that. And I'm the person who made this level, and I made the jump height what it is, and I can't tell. So the players aren't going to be able to tell. And all that is just infuriating. That's actually, I just feel like someone's telling me that I'm an idiot when I try doing that. Like, it's something stupid about thinking that you could jump at that. It's horrible. And you see that in games so often. So making a choice that's going to constrain your design like that, but lead to better player comfort is invaluable, right? I don't care about not having 1.5 meter high platforms in my game. No one's going to care. The players are going to care that they're not going to have that experience. And then, yeah, as well as we've just been doing, right? Design with the player in mind. So the world is built to the player's metrics. You can also account for the player making a mistake. The player's not going to know your controls and anything else as well as you do. And also don't mislead the player unintentionally. A classic example of this that you'll get quite often in games, it's not great when you come across it, is say there's an area in a level that you can explore. You can go over in that direction. And when you get there, there's nothing. Like there's nothing to do, nothing to see, no change, and it was just pointless. And I'm like, well, I just wasted my time coming over here, and I have to go all the way back. If there was some reason that I went there, great. If the space isn't solving any sort of purpose, then it shouldn't be there. Okay, let's say we've got our 3Cs fairly solid now, right? And I've got some mechanics ready to go on my level. Let's say I've got my combat mechanics. I've got some, actors and things I want to use in there. Surely now we can start writing our pitch and then go through the rest of the sort of level design process. And this is typically what level design flow might look like. So the pitch. What is the space like? Well, what do we do here? Like, why does it exist? If there's other stakeholders, I'm trying to call out things that are hopefully going to give an indication as to the sort of environment that we're making, so that hopefully, they can understand what the kind of asset requirements might be for it. And we can get a better idea as well to see, like, is this, and imagine, is the scale too big? Is it too small? Do we have enough? Do we gonna have enough time? Does it sound expensive? Is this overscoped? Well, I've given myself a direction here that I'm coming up with an optional area for my amazingly unoriginal game, Steel of Honor. And since I have no one to need to satisfy for this, I just jump in and I do what I want. So here is my pitch. On the edge of the kingdom's borders, the hero comes across a witch living in the woods. Her cat has gone missing. Oh no. And she appeals to the hero to help find it. A band of trolls, not trolls, has moved into the ruins of an old fortress on the nearby cliffs, and she fears they may have taken it. The hero ventures along an old road that runs along the coastline, working their way up towards the ruins that look over the sea, the area. And I think the sea as well, because it's on the coast. They make their way into the ruins, now refortified by the trolls. They can hear the cat meowing. It must be close. Finally, the hero finds the cat. But to their surprise, the trolls are taking great care of it, and the cat seems pretty happy in its new home. Here, the hero can choose to do the heroic thing, obviously, and murder the evil trolls, and then return the cat to its rightful owner, or side with the trolls and convince the witch that you were too late to save the cat. If the cat is returned to the witch, she thanks the hero profusely and then proceeds to kill the cat and prepare it for her dinner. Now, obviously, I don't need to get this signed off by anyone. I'm just going to sign this off myself because, I'm both the level designer and the creative director, and this is my dream. So I'm just going to run with the first idea I've had. And we're going to take this further, and let's have a look at how we break down this element into its component pieces and where we go from here. Okay, so I take some of the elements from the pitch. These are things that either need further investigation by different departments, but also will be informing my level design, things that I know are they're gonna be things that I need to reference and I need to sort of draw kind of inspiration for and stuff. So it's, it's the edge of the kingdom's borders, it's an old fortress, there's the witch living in the woods. See what does her home look like? How is she living there? What effect does she have on the landscape? This kind of coastal ruin, nearby cliffs, all this kind of stuff. That's very much, it's got a very sort of strong visual thematic with it that I can imagine. I can see all the sort of pieces put together, and these are the things that I'm like, yeah, I like the look of that. I want to try and dig into that and see how all those different pieces come together. Obviously, the trolls themselves, the trolls I'm probably not going to be building because I'm the level designer, but the impact that the trolls have on the landscape is going to be something that I need to ensure that I am aware of, right? Yeah, like there's this bit in the mission I guess I'm kind of keen on of this, like the juxtaposition. Hey, I did a quick switcheroo. Actually, the troll's great. The cat doesn't want rescuing, all this kind of stuff. And that's going to need a lot of like tension building. We need to sort of make the player understand how they're taking care of the cat. That needs to be very clear, hopefully without not flashing up a box of text saying the cat's having a great time and the trolls are really nice, because that would suck. So with that ready, I guess I've got some areas I can start doing some reference gathering. Now, reference gathering obviously can be done a lot on the art side, right? Looking at the colors, the specific detail, trying to replicate certain kind of assets, what kind of look they're going for. Concept art in particular, really trying to draw together lots of different disparate ideas, and then like, here's what our vision is for what this is supposed to look like. But level designers do it too. And it's really important actually for a level design to understand the shape language of the particular reference that they're going for. If I'm building a ruin on a clifftop hill overlooking a forest on the coastline, I need to know like how naturally do those sorts of shapes fit together, because it needs to look like that sort of place, right? I need to understand that how those things fit together and how it looks natural. Even though level art will be ultimately responsible for kind of making this sold artistically and believable, the logic of the space needs to make sense. It needs to sort of feel, I can't just give them a bunch of blocks and then go, yeah, just make that look good. That's not how it can work. But then also I use this reference to kind of either generate new ideas or kind of fill in missing pieces with external ideas and such. You know, I come out, I find a bit of reference and I see something in there and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I want to do that. So this in mind, I started looking at like a coastline, ruins and cliffs and such. It's strange, I ended up jumping into, there's an area of the Dorset coast called the Jurassic Coast, which is very sort of like rugged, interesting looking landscape. And weirdly, a lot of my references start coming back to Dorset. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm sticking with Dorset now. We've got Corfe Castle in there. We've got a bunch of other sort of areas around there. There's a couple of other castles actually on in Dorset, but suffice to say, I was finding like things I like the shapes of. This kind of this sea arch, pretty cool. I liked this kind of like active landslide, kind of breaking down the parts of the cliff. That would be cool. It's kind of interesting. And also, actually, I just love the shape of this. How you get this kind of ramp down. You can see the other hill climbing up the other side. It's very cool. And also, actually, it was this castle here. Actually, I like this kind of little bridge bit going across. I thought this was kind of neat, and I could imagine this kind of gateway linking into it as well. It's got a good sort of transitional space between a very open environment into kind of closed, especially when we're coming into the ruins, and it's like, you know, we want to ratchet up the tension. That what are these trolls doing? Have they kidnapped this cat? Are they eating the cat? What's going on? This poor cat. This is a point at which we can start to kind of build on that tension. So I thought that would be kind of neat. And then, yeah, because I went down the Dorset rabbit hole, I actually was looking at lots of different woods around Dorset. I really liked this one. I liked how overgrown the path is. Seems a bit weird that the sort of wooden fence is in such good condition, but I'd probably sort of break that down a bit more. And just like the Bluebell Woods, you know, making it all a little bit mysterious, a little bit magical. The witch's cottage here is actually in Bristol, so it's not, I broke with my Dorset tradition. But yeah, this is sort of ideas that I'm starting to sort of feed in through here. Just getting, you know, getting my mindset in the sorts of places I'd want to see in this story which we're telling. So next up, we're gonna plan out the environment. Right now, this can be done in a number of ways. It's important to keep in mind the reasons why we're doing this. We can put a broad overview of our design on paper. I can help communicate what we plan to do to other stakeholders easily. And putting a plan together like this, a kind of visual plan, can help prove out how the levels should flow. I can test ideas out before I've even built them. I can see if there's things missing. It should be able to inform me quite quickly where there are gaps and such. Now, here I've got some examples of 2D maps. Actually, this one's from Dark Souls 3. This is from Valorant. And some level designers, some studios will use 2D maps during their planning stage. UB uses them. Most of the projects I've been on have had some degree of like 2D map planning. But also it's very common to have other forms of illustration instead. These two maps are really misleading, right? Because both of these are being produced after the level's already been completed. And these are made with the purpose of teaching a player the layout of the final level. I've got, I've got maps that were made to go into, Prima game guides of levels that I've built. And they are absolutely made after the level's been built. And so you looking at them at the point at which, like, oh, I'm going to plan out a level. Oh, I guess I need to build a 2D map. Well, you get this sort of false sense that, oh, you should be able to sketch out your level in 2D in this sort of detail with, all this sort of high degree of planning and accuracy. And I don't think it's usually the case. I mean, personally, when I review someone's 2D level design plans, for me, it's more an exercise in, can they demonstrate whether or not they've thought about how they'll fill their space and how all the bits connect together logically. And the actual map accuracy of like, oh, this room's this big and there's a stairway here and stuff, that's not as important. It's more an important idea about the logical connections between stuff. And the kind of finer details just get completely ignored. So with that in mind, I've got a sort of having a flow map. This is a rough flow of how like the landscape and the themes change as you move through the space. I'll put some of my references in there, hopefully to convey the kind of visuals that I'm going to build. Of course, like not every level design is going to have such autonomy. I mean, from my experience, sometimes I've started with a piece of concept art where, the art department is already, this is the visual that we're going for, but we need to realize this into more of a playable space. Other times as well, like, you might get started in 3D, you might start blocking something out, but then you might get a concept artist to paint over. Let's say you've got, actually, yeah, this is the kind of shape we're going with, but we need to better inform like what the final sort of product's going to look like, what the sort of visual style is going to be. So paint over is a great way of just taking, what is already there from the design point of view, and then imagining, slapping on the art on the end and going, this is what the final product could look like. It's very good for sort of, explorative stuff on top of rough block out. Again, though, like production flows vary from level to level, project to project. Another thing that we can use like a flowchart for is, say in this case, I have a mission, right? I can understand the flow of the quest's decision points and where different parts of its logic might happen. So here I've just mapped out like the main beats of this quest. And I could have actually taken this sort of flow document and overlaid it over the other one, so I can see where in my level do each of these moments happen, and how the quest progresses through the environment. There's a super high level on this, the quest, I go and I speak to the witch, I go through the travel off to the ruins, to confront the trolls. There is the sort of reveal of the twist and the player's decision to side with either party. And then I have kind of two aspects of the quest resolution, depending on which branch the player takes there. I guess to some extent as well, we might potentially have a failure condition off here as well. Maybe if the player has complete autonomy and freedom to murder everyone, they murder everyone and the quest is no longer completable. But I didn't put that one in. So this sort of flow diagram approach is actually quite commonplace for mission design, but you see them used spatially a lot as well. I come back to this at the end. There's going to be loads of links, don't worry. But a great reference for peeking behind the curtain in level design is Blocktober. Just check out Twitter, have a look at the hashtag, look at the previous years. It's a shame that we are miles away from October at the moment. You can see obviously all of the stuff from last year. But a lot of neat times you get to see a lot of famous levels as they looked early in production. And I mentioned here, there's the whole thread from Dana Nightingale. She's the campaign director at Arcane Lyon, and she's showcasing the absolute masterclass that is the Clockwork Mansion from Dishonored 2. Oh, just a moment. Sorry, just a second. I just had a delivery. I just had to take some of that. Yeah, so the flow chart from Dishonored 2, Clockwork Mansion. There'll be some links later on. There's actually a really good breakdown on YouTube going through all of this as well, and you get a lot of kind of early video shots and stuff. But oh, hang on just a moment. Sorry about that, just had someone banging on the door. Yeah, so with that, we can get to our block out, right? We should be able to begin the process of building our level in 3D. We're going to have to start by getting the high level pieces of our environment put together in 3D. You don't want to be, we want to avoid using any detailed meshes at the moment. Everything's going to be simple. You just want to communicate the absolute kind of roughest silhouettes of the intention. You can use color to highlight, functionally different objects or surfaces. You obviously don't want to be using textures. The goal is to, as with everything, right, try and reach the answers that you need. So the absolute earliest thing you want to be doing in your block out is to get a sense of how big is your level, how much stuff needs to go into it, how much space are you going to need to be able to put this thing together. So I started throwing things into UE4, and I've got like a really sort of very early on stuff getting shoved in here. So at the absolute highest level, I've got like some of the points I was picking out along here, where I've got my level entrance, roughly how far away I think the witch's cottage is going to have to be from there. I've got this like transitional space where I know I'm going to have to come out of the forest. I need to come out into this clifftop path, and then I need to be working up towards the ruins. An important part here is that I'm literally just looking at how far away each of these components needs to be. Because remember, I know how fast my character moves. So I can estimate how long it'll take the player to go from area to area. And so I can also then estimate how long any content I've put in there is going to take, which is going to slow the player down. it means that I get to estimate very clearly, like, how much game time do I have? How much, stuff is the player doing? And also, like, what's the pacing of this level like? You also might notice I block colors for everything, but I also use checkerboard, which you'll see closer in, because it's an absolute nightmare without checkerboard to be able to determine sort of distance, especially on close surfaces. So if I cut out here, obviously my landscape super rough along the cliffs. I'm not sculpting the cliffs yet. I mean, usually they'd be part sculpted and parts you're using a lot of cliff meshes, sort of intersecting with the height field, cutting the height field away in other places just to get that sort of natural feel. But right now we're looking at the overall, like, large scope of how the landscape's going to move, and where all these pieces are in relation to it. And yeah, as I was mentioning here, so we have this forest that we're coming out of, and due to how compressed it is in there, we've got this, it feels very fast as you're moving through there. So you get all of the trees sort of parallaxing past your camera. As you emerge out into this open area, there's that sort of that slowdown as everything starts to come out. We crest over this hill. It's classic, like the camera's going to frame it as we come out, and we see all these different sort of pieces moving there. The climb back up at the other end of the hill creates this kind of tension with this, the ruins looming over the top of you, should help build the tension towards that narrative twist. It's something we want to do there. And we'll come back to circulation later on, but you can see it being employed here. Also see as well, actually, I measure all the landscape just to know the distance that I'm going, because I know how fast the player is going to move. I know how long that's going to take. And so I start framing or imagining how things are going to get framed as I come out of this point. One of the benefits you have if you are constraining the ways in which the player goes is that you can frame the composition of the camera as it comes through there. You don't need a cutscene camera or anything else like that, because you know which way the player's looking. You can also obviously use other tricks to try and draw the player's attention over to a place, have something move, have something kind of obvious that's in there, attract their attention over, and then know that they're looking in that direction. A lot of other level designers are typically sort of design multiple vantages on throughout their sort of levels to compose shots in, to be able to go, yeah, actually this is what it's going to look like here. And that's where you get to almost kind of work on the levels realization from multiple angles and be able to kind of get all these different bits to fit together. There's this distant hill here as well, which is literally, it's not a playable space. It's literally just there so that as our kind of path arcs around here, you're going to see it shift in perspective to the close hill that we're heading towards. It should look quite nice for doing that. A lot of this needs refining and stuff. Again, I've got some crappy trees in here that I just sort of mashed together. The point with having something like that is that you say building a forest, you really need something representative of like the enclosed space. Otherwise you don't get enough sense of like how big the space is going to be. So here I've grabbed another couple of screenshots from different points, and I've overlaid them on the flow diagram that we got from earlier. Now this is miles, like, far from done, right? This block out is like, we've got the faintest hints of where things could go, but there's no structure yet. There's nothing in here. We really need to, there's no content. The forest as well is really bad, right? It needs a lot of work. It's really flat. The paths are really boring. There's no sense of wandering about yet. You want to have that kind of the sense of almost feeling like you're going to get lost to the player. And that's not in there yet. So that needs a lot of working on. Now, the thing is, I've got these two flows, I've got this block out on so far, but I'm not going to take this any further. The reason is there's some really critical issues that really should have prevented me from blocking this out even at all, right? Even just at the planning stage, it should have been shot in the face. Actually, even in the point at which I wrote the pitch, it should have just been shot down. So just using the planning stuff so far, what do you think the issues are with this? And I'm going to see, I don't have the chat window. Oh, okay, right. I've got the chat window here. I'm going to bring this. Yeah, I don't know. I guess everyone could use the chat point in Zoom. Oh, folks are using Discord, I think. Hang on a sec. I'll see if I can open the Discord as well. There we go. Nope, there was no Discord.
Sorry, Bryn, what are you trying to do?
Oh, I was trying to see if anyone, what issues people see with my design. Like what problems do you foresee, even just with the plan?
Well, maybe we need a hint. Something.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I can tell you my. There's my one. I think this is one of the most glaring ones to me, right? So, if you look at the level, right, the vast majority of the level is. Right, I come out of the forest, I've got this big old coastal road, then we've got this hill and we've got these ruins, right? That's the vast majority of it. It's also a very large, at the moment, open natural space. So that means a lot of work, right? Like a lot of work to realize it artistically and, just kind of getting it look nice. That's the largest point of our level, but it's also the part in our quest that nothing happens. Currently, nothing happens in that. And this isn't uncommon. This is a thing that I've done and lots of level designers have done at some point when, yeah, I mean, Ethan is going up with there as well. Yeah, let me read these out. So Jackson, doesn't feel like there is a strong or fun mechanic behind the game. That completely, yeah. This game is very derivative. It doesn't have a USP at this point, right? There's nothing. This is just like, okay, it's a bit like Skyrim or something, but not as good. And it doesn't. And even Skyrim's got like what is it? The dragon. Oh, is it Dragonborn or the Dragon Sworn? I think it is. I'm forgetting that kind of thing where it's got something that's evocative that's in there that feeds into the narrative and the mechanics and stuff. Yeah, this doesn't have anything like that. Even then, even if it was just like the mechanics are a bit meh, but this could still be an interesting level, but it's not. As Ethan says, yeah, there's a huge gap when traveling to the ruins. And traveling to the ruins in the quest flow is just like, yeah, we just travel to the ruins. In the level, there's nothing there. Now we could fill it. We could put combat along that road, right? I could be fighting things. Again, now, like, what am I fighting? Am I fighting trolls? That feels a bit weird. If the twist is, hey, actually the trolls are nice, and I just murdered loads of trolls on the way here, I'm gonna feel really bad when I get there and I find out actually the trolls are okay, if that's what I'm trying to go for. I'm sort of confused by the messaging of that too. Like, say I rescue the cat and I give the cat back to the witch. And then I had this stupid twist, which I just thought was funny, where I'm like, hey, actually the witch is gonna, eat the cat. There's potentially could be something that you'd see in a mission, right? But the tone of that is a bit weird. Like, does the tone of the game match that? Is the rest of the game kind of humorous and wacky? And even if it is, like, I just did all this stuff to help her. I thought I was doing the right thing, I guess. And then I get this switcheroo right at the end. I can't stop. It's just like, haha, actually you messed up. And so it feels like I've been cheated as a player. It doesn't feel very satisfying. Yeah, exactly. It's a blind choice for players. So it's the player's going to feel a bit suckered by that choice. I guess the idea that the trolls could be good, that could have some legs, that could be interesting potentially. Yeah, exactly. We could have conversation during the travel to give player hints. I guess one of the things here, obviously, there's nothing wrong with having a moment of slower action in a level. We get to that a little later when we talk about pacing, but this could be a point where, gameplay intensity is low. There's some cool looking vista, and yeah, someone is talking to me, I don't know, in my head, or the characters talking to themselves. I don't know. This is kind of tricky in a game like this. Maybe I've got someone with me who's going to talk to me. That'll be fine. Or I talk to my horse. But you could have, yeah, like a conversation that's going there to try and, fill in the rest of the narrative here. But it still feels weird, right? One thing that we're doing here, say, we'll put in combat, we'll put in some conversation to fill the gaps. We're designing ad hocly. So we've got a problem and we're saying, well, there's a problem. Oh, we're just gonna put a post-it note on it. We're just gonna sellotape this up, it will be fine. Yeah, so yeah, totally. Pass through a village, hearing conversation from villagers, and then talking about trolls helping them. Yeah, that could completely be an idea as well. Maybe that's something again where instead of it also just being non-interactive, maybe it's something that I can interact with those villagers. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's things that I get to choose how, maybe I don't, maybe there's a way in which I could miss that information and it changes the way in which the quest goes. There's lots of ways there. I guess there's some sort of fundamental issues that we dial back to, which is like, what am I trying to say with this quest, right? Like, what am I trying to tell the player? What do I want the player to experience? Because as well, I don't want the player to just be told a story that I've come up with. I want the player to experience the story and hopefully, enjoy it a little bit and have a feel like they're a participant in the story. They're not just watching a film, because we're playing a game, right? They want to have some interaction here. Yeah, the player's anti-troll prejudice is challenged totally, and I think I mean I deliberately picked derivative sort of subjects here. There is, I think it's Witcher 2. There's a troll prejudice side quest actually. There's a troll that lives under a bridge. I think I remember that. And then you actually find out that the soldiers have been harassing the troll. And then you're like, it's a nice thing because I guess there's supposed to be this kind of more moral gray area in The Witcher where, you're supposed to be sort of adjunct to human issues and monster issues. You're a monster hunter, but you're also supposed to be like I do that because it's my job and I'm sort of good at it. But also, I think humans are a bit rubbish, and a lot of problems are just caused by humans doing stuff. Witcher 3 has one as well, yeah. And oh my god, I'm thinking another one. I think Brothers Tale of Two Sons just has a very sad bit with a troll, I think. No spoilers in there, but yeah. But yeah, so getting to the meat of this, like this is actually the problem, right? There's some of the ideas that I had here, it was a bit derivative and boring. Why did I assume that there was going to be a witch and the witch was going to be female, and there's a troll and like there's ruins on a hill? There's a bit derivative. Maybe we've already got ruins on a hill, and what makes this ruin on a hill exciting? Like what's really gonna, as a level designer, I've got the opportunity to have someone come away from this experience going, wow, like that's gonna stick with me. Not even just from a story perspective, not just the narrative, but from the experience of interacting with that content. And I feel like I haven't done enough to really, like build an idea here. I just kind of ran with some stuff. As he said, as has been said before, right, there's no magic sauce here to kind of sell this experience to the player. They're just going to come away. We could probably ship this. Like this could be a level in a game. Played plenty of levels like this in a game. I've made levels like this in a game where you're just like, like the middle of it just isn't good. Like you just kind of made some stuff up in the middle. And really, you have an opportunity if you're crafting the space to, make it fit. It's got one job. The one job is to, tell this experience that you're doing. Now, coming back to my idea, really, right, I got attached to two things here. It was the twist with the trolls and the cat. And I liked this ruin on a hill on the cliffs. It was like, oh, it was kind of cool. But everything else in the mission and in the level is just shoehorned around those two moments, right? And if I keep going, I'm just going to be making ad hoc fixes to the overall design to ensure that those two things stay, because they're my two favorite things in this idea, even though fundamentally it's not working in my favor. I hit next. Come on. So I just froze. There we go. So I'm going to nuke it. I'm going to delete the whole thing and I'm going to start again, right? Because that's okay. You're gonna throw things away, especially in level design. You're gonna delete lots of work and throw it away and try again. Oh my god, why is this freezing so badly? In a sec. Sorry about this. Advance. There we go. So I could still keep elements of that idea, right? Like I like the idea of finding the lost cat and discovering that in fact the cat doesn't want to be rescued. Like it seems like it could be fun, even if it's the unwanted rescue is a classic trope. But I need to feel a better way of setting the story up. Like if that's my story, if that's the payoff, I want to set it up so that one, the player has a more satisfying resolution, especially a resolution that doesn't just involve murdering everything. We need a meat, there needs to be some content in here, because all we've got at the moment is bookends. We've got this resolution, this twist, and then we've got the start of a quest where you don't know it. If that's what we're going to be working up towards, then yeah, we want to build the tension of it and we want the space to be built as such to its job is going to be doing that. And again, you know, we can narrow down like what tone are we going for? Is this going to be a funny quest? Is it going to be, as he said, there is everything from you know, sort of like parody, fantasy, subverting tropes, which we could try and do there. Or it could be something, yeah, as the Witcher example is, of like anti-troll prejudice and trying to look at that and, you know, saying something about that. Those are two ways which this could go, with a very similar sort of subject matter, but very different kind of application of this. So I say on this, right, you always want to try and evaluate your designs as you go along. I deliberately let this design run for a bit longer than it should have, just to illustrate how you can get carried away on certain ideas, not see the whole picture, not see where you've got issues going on there. You always want to think about the player experience. Like what is the player doing at this point, and how does the player understand these things? If something doesn't work, then you can ditch it. You know, you throw the level away, you redesign, you can repitch. It's completely normal to do that. As I say, everyone's first level is terrible. It's common to, yeah, kill your darlings as well. Yeah, it is. Yeah, just like don't, especially in level design, it's good not to get precious about stuff, because you can get towards the end of production and they'll cut something and you just don't have enough time. You're like, yeah, sorry, it's on the cutting floor, it's not going to make it. But also, you know, when you're earlier on in design, you've got more level designs running, you know, more parts of the game running, then learn from your rejected ideas and use them to refine later designs. Peer review, get feedback, as I've just got from all of you, thank you very much. Ask your team, get ideas tested, especially practicing giving feedback with others and receiving feedback also helps, because pretty much anything that you do in sort of making a game is going to need a bit of feedback from people. And as well, play tests if you can, early and often, getting people who are not on your team to try, you know, a mechanic or your game or, you know, something like that is really useful, because anyone on your team is not going to be a typical user. They're going to be too expert. So now, hopefully, we've seen how the level design process can go horribly wrong and off the rails. But we come back to this idea of like, what is good level design? This is, you know, obviously has some sort of personal preference in there too, right? You can speak to people and go, what do you think is a good level? People can have very different ideas about what a good level is. Now, I wonder actually if anyone here, and I'll jump back into the chat if you have any comments. Are there any particular levels that you enjoy in like literally any game, where you go, wow, I really liked that level. I thought that level was great. I thought it was, you know, it was really well designed, or it was just exciting, or, you know, maybe you don't know why you like it, but you do. Yeah, Last of Us, a lot of Zelda dungeons. Yeah. Witcher 3 Hearts of Stone has amazing level designs. As there's a colleague of mine who is a level designer on Witcher 3. I'd be very pleased to hear that you like it. Yeah, Bloodborne, GTA 5. Dishonored 2, everything God of War 2018. Yeah, it's amazing actually. I really like. I totally agree with the new God of War. But there's one thing that stood out for me. It was one of the first things I saw in the first level, and I was like, wow, they're doing this, and no one's going to call them out for it. It's the use of invisible walls. So many invisible walls, but like, not that I have a problem with that. I was just like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of this game. They just, didn't want to deal with like having nasty collision you get snagged on. So there's just big old invisible walls everywhere. That's fine. Totally cool. Yeah, but like I get to concentrate on what's important, which is the rest of the level design, way that the kind of where the levels lurk, all the kind of internet connectivity of them and stuff. Yeah, Red Dead Redemption, Watch Dogs 2, Zodiac Killer 1. Death's Door, yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's good. It's nice knowing that everyone's got levels in their mind that they think are interesting, that they enjoy. It's always good to like know where you stand on something. Is if you know that there's something that you like, then you can start to analyze, why do I like it? What do I like about it? And then what can I learn from the fact that I like this? There's a quote that I'm gonna reproduce here. Oh, there we go. I need 2 clicks to get back. Yeah, it's a quote from Joel Burgess. He used to be the world director on Watch Dogs Legion. He's now the studio director at Cappy Games. He's also founding member of GDC Level Design Summit, and there's a million talks from him at GDC about level design from a while back. He's one of the handful of level designers on Skyrim, Fallout 4, lots of Bethesda games. And yeah, it was said that good level design is when the level designer is high-fiving the player. I always like that one because it speaks to the role of the level designer. You play a really hard, satisfying level, like you're like, oh my god, I thought I was going to die, and I did it, and I'm like, oh my god, that was awesome, right? It's not that the level designer is trying to kill you. They don't want you to fail. The level designer is trying to make you succeed. They want you to win, because if you don't win, you don't see the rest of the content that they built. So there's no point in them being like an adversary to you. They want you to feel smart. They don't want to go like, you should, go up to this door and use the key. They want you to learn how all of these. Okay, well, there's that too. Yeah, like the Souls games and things like that. That's part of the narrative in some ways, right? Actually, the core narrative around the Souls games being like, you are like, if you're like the soulless, everyone's dead kind of thing, and every single NPC you meet is just like, yeah, you'll talk about that stuff later on. But it's like the whole narrative is about, you should just give up. You should just, oh yeah, well, why are you here? You're just going to fail. Everything is reinforcing that fact. It's so depressing. But the point of it, the kind of this hostility, is so that it kind of brings you up the other side, right? You go, oh my God, I triumphed against this. I made it a little bit further. I got to the next bonfire. I did this. And that's the kind of, it's the journey of you overcoming the thing that narratively no one's done. You're kind of the person being able to succeed at this. So I think it's a nice narrative conceit around that. The level design, actually, certainly, I haven't played Sekiro, so I don't. I watched the stream of a guy playing it, breaking the world record, playing it blindfolded. That was insane. So it was the first time I'd seen the game properly like that. But But there's a lot of talks on the level design of the Dark Souls games. You can see where the interconnectivity of these different pieces, where you unlock these little sort of shortcuts between places, and they try and sort of reorient yourself around these like hub areas that you're traveling between. It's nice. There's a couple of bits where obviously, you know, occasionally things like that get shoehorned, where you go, it's not quite as clean as it should have been, but largely everything fits together very nicely. But yeah, when you want them to feel smart, right? You want the player to understand the structure through which they can feel rewarded by their choices. You want them to evaluate a choice, make that choice, and then go, oh yeah, like I understand how I'm supposed to be using this space. And that's where the high five comes in. So some of my my choices in this space. Oh yeah, so Titanfall 2. Sorry, there's minor spoilers in some of these bits, right? But hey, you can, if you've got Game Pass, you can go and play Titanfall 2 for free right now, or like after the class, or whatever, if you haven't played it. So Into the Abyss and actually another level, Affecting Cause, which you might have noticed was, you know, in a screenshot earlier on in the talk, are like outstanding levels in Titanfall 2. They're both designed by the same level designer, Christopher Dion. There is a fantastic GDC talk on this level. Actually, the GDC talk was I watched that GDC talk, and then I got halfway through it and I was like, wait a sec, I don't want to spoiler this. And I went and I played Titanfall 2 after that, because I was like, it's too good. Yeah, it's just like, it's not just the kind of, there's a great narrative conceit around this level. So there's a lot of like, oh, you know, you're seeing all these things happen, and it's building up the kind of mystery, the awe of, you know, these vista shots and stuff like that. But it also, this idea fits perfectly around Titanfall's navigation mechanics, right? It just lends itself so well to this. You get really interesting like combat scenarios and things like that. It's really good use of everything packed together. Glad somebody mentioned Dishonored 2 earlier, because Clockwork Mansion, which I also mentioned earlier in the talk too. Like Dishonored 2 has some great levels, but like this is typically one that stays with everyone. And this is yeah, absolutely just amazing puzzle kind of constructed by Dana Nightingale. Again, there's a brilliant talk from Game Maker's Toolkit, which links will be at the end as well if you haven't seen it, talking with Dana about the process of developing this level, and you get to see like a lot of behind the scenes sketches, block out, stuff like that. It's very cool. And then okay, like most recent, it's probably like most recent, like great, just solid level design and game idea, which it's kind of like the kitchen sink. It's got so, you know, like every new level has new mechanics and they just run with it, and there's so many new fun crazy puzzles built around them. But yeah, It Takes Two is great. Spaced Out is a solid section on there where like one of the players can grow and shrink themselves, and one of the other players has this like anti-gravity ability. There's just like a little section you see of some of this stuff being demonstrated, but they managed to run with this for so long. Some of the bits are just awesome. There is again, actually, Game Maker's Toolkit does a great breakdown on another level from It Takes Two. I will be sharing the links at the end, but you can see that as well. And it's this is a great thing to look at for, like, remember when I'm talking about spaces designed for player metrics. We've got multiple player avatars metrics here, right? So we need to design for both of these states. where, like how does the player kind of be able to move comfortably in both of these sort of areas. Yeah, and here, like Mario Sunshine, yeah, there are lots and lots of great levels out there. The level designer's role, right? They advocate for the player. They're the person who is going to hopefully like bring all the pieces together and make sure that the player experience is good, right? And it's a bit of a funny way of saying that, because you go, well, surely everyone on the game team advocates for the player, right? Surely all the designers advocate for the player. And yeah, in some ways they do, right? But you can have great mechanics and bad level design and you get a bad game. And you can have bad mechanics and good level design. And like it gets carried, right? It's actually like, okay, it's like this game would suck more if the levels weren't, as good. Like the level designers have done a good job with this one. Yeah, there's especially, I don't know, there are like on the side of mechanics of solid 3Cs and mechanics games. I don't know, it wasn't really my game in the first place, but oh yeah, when you build the entire game around the idea of players going off track, the Stanley Parable, yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, right, so the Stanley Parable always gets brought up for this. And I debated whether I'd bring this up again, because it was in an older talk, and I'm like, it's an old game idea. Sorry, it's an old game. Do I really want to bring up an old game and point at it, right? But I don't know if everyone's familiar with the level All Gillied Up in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It's like a classic, kind of like narrative driven level. It's the classic sort. It's one of those things that like people usually bring up as like one of the greatest levels in a Call of Duty ever. It seems a bit weird now because so many things do what it does and replicate that so often. A lot of people say it's one of the greatest FPS. The sniper one, yeah, you're crawling around, you don't really, it's all very careful and stuff like that. Now, one thing that stands out in that, that a lot of people haven't noticed, is that there is an entire alternate path in that level. You don't need to sneak around and be really careful and stuff like that. There is an alternate path where you can go off, you go and grab some rockets. The helicopter comes, you shoot the helicopter down, you go like basically loud, and it's just insane. And yeah, most people don't experience the level like that. The brilliant thing is the players who are just like, I don't care, I'm going into that building. I'm like, I've got this. The game it allows you to do that, and the game responds to you like you're doing that. Like your partner is like, oh, you're just showing off now, and it's funny, right? It's like, the Stanley Parable is trying to sort of parody those things where like the player is being told to go and do these things, and you should go and do them. This is what the mission requires. Ezio didn't kill civilians, etc., all that kind of stuff. And here you can subvert that, and the game, it's a level that actually people see as being, yes, it's very constrained, but it's not. It does allow you to be this whole other play style if you want, which I thought was very neat. And yeah, so anticipating how players might go off track and then legitimizing them like that, so that they can still get something out of the level. They can still go off and feel like they're being smart, they're being able to kind of, use their wits, instead of forcing the player to do a specific solution, the solution that you thought of, but hang on a sec, this other one looks perfectly viable. I come back to the it takes two, right? The way in which they're communicating with the player here. So you see that obviously we've got these walls that prevent the ball from rolling over them, and it should, because we can see over them, we can evaluate the path beyond. They've shrunk, the wall is at this height, I believe, so that the player can jump over when they're in their small size. One of the problems I found when I played this level is I did think, no, I'm not supposed to go that way, but I reckon I can push the ball fast enough that it could roll over it and I could cheat it. And it turns out you can't, they block it, which is a shame. So, you know, there's still some issues with the language there, but I know that I'm not supposed to go that way. Also, though, we've got these glass tiles, and there's a big old planet beneath me, right? So it really makes these tiles pop out, and these illustrate the path I'm supposed to take. Now you see, obviously, this kind of rolls this way and it goes around there. Now this way, there's this wall here, so the ball is not supposed to go that way, but the player is. I can jump over that wall, and then the glass going up, that means that May's character, who's got this anti-gravity power, can walk up there. So very simply, we're being communicated to in the sort of simple design language that's being used. Now I've got, oh my God, let's see if I can select this in here. I think I messaged it to myself. Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so this is, I decided to stick with this. It's a bit old now. This is, it's actually a level from Splinter Cell Blacklist. So it's not like a bleeding edge example of good level design. But it's a personal example to me, because what happened was, you know, it was before I started at Ubisoft Toronto. This was the first game that Ubisoft Toronto released, Splinter Cell Blacklist. And so I was playing the game, analyzing it, and, you know, looking at, like, yeah, I got to know, like, what studio am I joining? Like, what's the game like? Is the game good? You know, what things do I like about it? And I had a big old OneNote of me breaking down lots of pieces in there. And there's a level called The Abandoned Mill from a colleague of mine, Paul Dobson. He's no longer a level designer, he's narrative designer now. This, I'll send you the link here. Now, this is going to be, this is just a YouTube video of someone playing. I'd much rather have been able to play and, like, show head on, but, you know, I can't. It kind of sucks. So we're just going to have to watch a video of someone else playing it. Now, I only watched the first, like, 25-30 seconds of gameplay. And I want you to tell me in the chat everything that the level designer is using, every tool that they're using to communicate where the player's supposed to go. All right, so I have posted the link in the chat. Say lovely YouTube link. See, can I see it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, marker on the building is, yeah, I mean, that's the UI marker is unfortunately something they are using to communicate. It's very heavy-handed. Yeah, the voiceover will tell you. Yeah, exactly light and dark area. Yeah, light being used to guide the player in particular. And yeah, the player starts out looking at their goal. That's exactly right. Yeah, the shot frames, water being used to corner the player. Yeah, yeah, we know we can't go off to the right side of the screen there. Yeah, it's also the lasers, and that's even that's a particular one too, because that is a sort of like a means of foreshadowing to the player that there's a sniper. The sniper, you know, at least in this, they can see a very long distance. They're going to be able to take us out if we get too close. But luckily, the sniper uses a red dot on their sniper rifle, so we can anticipate that further back and be able to avoid it. Yeah, so there's lights being used. There is a specific use of lights. Actually, a number of ways of using light. And what's important to think about here with this game, you'll see light being used a lot in level design, right? Go towards the light. But also in a stealth game, you don't necessarily want to be in the light. You want to be in the shadow because that's where you're safe. So there's a balance between actually using light to say this is, it's more in this case, light being used to show you where kind of dangers might lurk. Yeah, yeah, where not to go. Yeah, yeah, radar on the bottom left. Yeah, it's certainly like radar, UI markers, voice, text boxes on the screen telling you. These are all like very heavy-handed, where we need to ensure that the player knows. But they're all, you know, the ideal case is where we can inform the player without doing something that takes them away from the experience of being in that environment. So like, you know, if I have a radar or I have a mini map in my corner, no one wants to look in that mini map. They don't want to look down there. They want to be able to tell from just looking on the screen, like what's going on. And UI markers and things like that are very gamey. It's very like, oh yeah, okay, I definitely have to go over there. But there's other things going on too. Okay, so I'll walk through some of the others that came up in that. Just a couple, sort of touched on them on some of them. I'm going to mute my tab. Okay, yeah. So as you brought out, right at the start, the camera is framing where you need to go. So we know, yeah, we've got to go over that way. Then there's also like a flash of lightning. And so the lightning really sort of drives it home. Hey, look over here, see up there, big building in front of you, up top of building, that's where you go. Okay. We have one route that we can sort of run across this water. It's very constrained. Because the route's constrained, we know generally where the player is going to be looking. So we can start to put things in their periphery to communicate with them. Now, if you see, there is, as the player's running across this little bridge, actually, yeah, oh my God, can I? All right, is this working for folks? I hope so. Yeah, it should be. Oh, yes, you can see my YouTube here, right? Hurrah. So yeah, I paused it here. I'm coming across this bridge, and to the right of me, there's this like rail, sort of rail car thing there. Now, I could just about see this here. There's light on here, so we can see like a spotlight. And there's actually silhouetted against here, there's a dog. There's a dog with a spotlight on it. The spotlight is casting the dog's shadow, because it means that I should be able to more obviously see, especially when you're playing, it's a bit more easier to see the dog there as you're coming past. You also get the dog barks as you come past. It's not very good for a guard dog to bark when also it's not defending stuff, against you. Yeah, it's like you run across here, you see the dog. Now, dogs are really bad in this stealth game because obviously you can lurk in the shadows. People can't see you in the shadows, but dogs can smell, and dogs smell person in shadows really easily. And then you get jumped, and then that's bad, right? So this is where like highlighting that to the player as they're coming across this way just ensures, hey, look, even if you saw the red sniper dot, I saw the red sniper dot like 3 seconds ago. Where is it? I'm coming across here. Oh, I saw a bit of a sniper dot. This person already knows they're coming through here. This lightning flash, it's really dark along here. There's some boxes. I'm like, I don't know where I'm going. And especially if I'm in shadow, I can't see. But luckily, because I'm obscured here with this thing on my side, the lightning flash can illuminate this area for me momentarily. So I know I'm safe and I can see where I'm supposed to go. And I know I can just keep heading this way. And then this light here gives me an indication of, okay, like I can go up this way. It's kind of safe. There's this dot over here, some sort of like machine gun thing. I don't know, a bit scary. Oh no, it's a little boat. Yeah, it's helping me know that the boat's there, and then I can see the sniper again. But at least I'm underneath some cover, so I've got out of the way of the sniper. So there's a lot of like the angle that the bridge is at leading me directly towards here, so I know that's the way the level is flowing. I shouldn't be going backwards. Lots of little things that are being used here to communicate by the level designer, like where you should go, giving you little hints without telling you have to go here. Unfortunately, the game also ends up putting a big old UI marker and says, go here, next mission objective is there. But, there's a mode where you can switch the UI off and be a purist, and it's probably really difficult to play like that. But yeah, it was great that that folks picked out most of that stuff in there. It's really good. So good level design then. We want to give the player enough information to make their own action evaluations. It's kind of, I don't know if you read the Design of Everyday Things, whatever. This is like making things visible. You want to make important things visible to the player so that they can evaluate and make their own decisions, as opposed to telling the player to do this or whatever. Using constraints, right? So having too little choice kind of sucks. In most cases, there's obviously, there's the sort of, I guess, the idea of choice, what it means in a game. It's a little bit different because we can talk about quick time events and stuff like that. And you might even have a quick time event that doesn't have a lot of actual choice, like everything might funnel towards the same end, but having the kind of the idea of a choice being in there is still valuable, and it's still valuable to the player that they're experiencing it that way. But also too many choices, and it's frustrating, right? I mean, like, personally, I am, I'm one of those people, I don't get open world games with loads of little things in the world it just gives me too much anxiety. I'm like, there's like, it's like looking at a shopping list of all these things I haven't done yet. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't, stop reminding me that I haven't collected all of those things, or I haven't unlocked this thing. Like, no, you're just making me feel bad now. Which, like, I've been responsible for doing some of those things in games. So I only got myself to blame there. But good level design, you also want to support the player. You've got the kind of the player that doesn't understand anything, the player who's going to need a degree of guidance, but also then you don't want to necessarily like block the player who knows what they're doing, or is the expert user. Kind of they need to have more sort of itemized view of how things go there. This is a classic as well, especially more recently. Oh yeah, Steve is heading out, but I will be okay without you, no worries.
Not just yet. I'm still here for another minute, but
okay, yeah, so
I need to take off soon,
yeah.
So yep,
no problem. Yeah, you get this a lot now with mission design, where let's say, oh, you have to go and get the key from X, or you have to go and do this thing and then come back to me. And like back in the old days, they just constrain, there'd be a lot of times where the logic would be constrained. You'd block the player from being able to do the thing out of order, because no, like you have to experience it like this. More often than not, people let go of the reins now. It's like, they go, oh yeah, you have to go and do, oh wait, you've actually already done the thing. Like, how did you know that I wanted you to do that? And they're like, yep, bam, I already knew. Hey, maybe I've died 5 times in this game already, and that's how I knew that I needed to do this. So it's always good having that, not needing to force someone who already knows what they're doing through the kind of constrained way of having to do it. So following on from that, really, like, good level design is a good application of level design theory. Although a lot of level design theory there's not a big sort of official book of level design terms. Some terms here you find used interchangeably with others. I think the terminology I've ended up here is fairly closely universal. If we look at the relationship between the level designer, their intent of the level mission that they're making, the actual level itself, and the player, we're describing the 3 conceptual models which come up in Norman's like design of everyday things, emotional design. You've seen it there, it's very common. The level designer essentially strives to have the user, which in this case the player, form their conceptual model of how the level or mission works, matching their original level design intent. In the previous section, we saw this employed in our examples, right? Oh, and there's a suggestion, the art of game design from Jesse Shell. Very good. So when we're looking at level design, and specifically with environmental design, because we can get into looking at mission design and a lot of more specifics around that, we can apply these design concepts more specifically to break this down into a set of skills shown above, which we'll go through in more detail. But hopefully calling back on things that we've already covered in this talk. Layout is basically how the key elements of the levels are arranged. It's the metrics that govern how it's shaped. When we go back to talking about how a level is a functional space first and foremost, but it also needs to make sense. If you're building a human space, a house, a street, a city, the player needs to get the impression that the level has existing functions outside of the game's use. There's on the left is a great GDC talk on the level design of Gone Home. Again, I'll link it at the end of this, which is talking about, actually how they kind of try and design the level to evoke a kind of open sense of exploration. Really, it's quite constrained, and it's also it doesn't actually make, it feels like it makes sense as a house, but it also isn't a house that could exist. You see what I mean? The pieces don't really fit together very well. On the right here is actually the map of Watch Dogs Legion, which is set in London, obviously in our like fictional Redux version of London, superimposed over the real London. The world design of that game still evokes the feeling of the real city. Like one of my favorite, there's a couple of different videos of people like, driving around London, or driving around, London in Watch Dogs Legion, and going like, oh, I know where this leads. I know where this street goes. It goes over. Oh yeah, no, I can. They start doing like, I'm going to pretend to be a cabbie and driving around there, it's really cool to see. And like, even for myself, I don't have the best understanding of London. I didn't, grow up just outside it. I knew enough of the kind of a lot of different areas that I go and look at people's level designs around them. I'm like, oh my God, like I know this street, I know this. And I'd start telling them, you need to put this place here. Like you need to put a restaurant here because there's this really cool restaurant right at the edge of this corner. And oh, you've got to put that there. Or like there was a club that I went to like 20 years ago, you've got to put this on there. And, oh yeah. It's just great fun doing that. When we talk about metrics, obviously we've had these metrics investigations earlier that we were talking about. On just below the map here is this climbing dead zone. So remember when I'm showing this jumping nightmare here, just driving me insane again. Well, in Watch Dogs 2 and Watch Dogs Legion, we used this like climbing dead zone. The player can climb 3 meters, right? That's the maximum climbable height that they can climb up. You cannot tell from a distance that say something that is 3 meters and something that is 4 meters, which would be unclimbable. It's not possible. You don't have, your depth perception isn't that good, especially when you're running away from the police and you're trying to like get away at the end of a mission. And if you run down an alleyway and there's a 4 meter high wall and you try climbing it and you can't, and then you get arrested and you're like, well, that sucked. Like I should have been able to anticipate that wall wasn't climbable. Then that's it. Now you have to go, okay, well, in order to make this readable, then we have to say, we have to constrain the design of the world to fit around the readability of the player. So the player will be able to understand, I get to, yep, that's a climbable wall. And then like that one over there, that's not a climbable wall. It wasn't perfect. It's still, there's so many problems in there. We have a very specifically modeled unclimbable wall, but of course, like there are also objects you can move around. You can park a car and climb on top of the car. You've got, so things actually change quite a lot there. It's an imperfect solution to try and make things readable to the player.
Bryn, sorry to interrupt. I have to step away, and before I do, I just wanted to make sure to thank you for coming by.
Oh yeah, no problem.
If I didn't have a doctor's appointment, I would stick around. But yes, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for coming by and sharing this. You can keep going. I need to go, but I will, I will touch base with you later. And
sounds good.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Thanks very much, Steve.
So much.
I'll catch up with you later on.
Yep. I'll catch up with you later.